guys, Adam here, Blackfyre Productions, and welcome back to another World War Marvel. Today I'm going to be discussing some X-Force action. So I'm trying to throw together my X-Force roster for some upcoming battle reports when I jump back into them. Thought I would do a little video discussing what I'm taking and some of my reasoning behind it. At least that's a thought. But before we jump into this discussion, I want to give a big shout out to my partners and the supporters over at Torchlight Games and Hobbies for the support that they have been giving the channel over the last little bit. It is greatly appreciated, and if you guys haven't checked them out yet, go to the description in the video down below. The link in the description of the video down below, and make sure you hit them and check them out down there to their web store. And then you can use Fire5 as a code, and you can save 5% off of your hobby supply needs. That's things like paint, paint brushes, things along those lines. So yeah, with that said, let's jump into the X-Force discussion and my roster and some tactics cards and the crisis events that I am bringing. So jumping into this discussion, obviously with it being X-Force, if you can't tell by the painted models back here, Cable obviously is the top dog, especially with this new release, the newer releases, I will say, at least here in Canada, and hopefully soon to be in the States and other areas in the world. Cable was definitely top of my selection for this roster. You can't have an X-Force list without Cable because he is the leader, has the affiliation and leadership bonus for that. So I'm not going to go into a ton of details about the character and the cards, but he is the top choice, and what he brings with him obviously is a lot of versatility. He has some good long-range shots, some up-close attacks with his spender. He gets some defense bonuses. He generates a couple power return, just a lot of stuff. And then his leadership bonus is a reroll 1 die in their attack roll once per turn. So anybody that's on his team, that's the leadership bonus that he brings to the board. So for a 5-threat character, he does a little bit of everything. He can throw some terrain. He can help defend his partners and teammates and such. So he just has a lot that he offers, as well as on the backside as well. With this spender attack, he does stagger, so gives out some status conditions as well. Which I think I forgot to mention during my unboxing of this. But there's a stagger on the backside, which is super huge, and the fact that he has some healing built in as well. In this list that I have put together, the main thought that I had process is to just be like a brick wall with a ton of healing capabilities. So a little bit there with Cable. And then up next we have Deadpool because, well, it's Deadpool, and he goes well with Cable, but also with X-Force and even X-Men. So yeah, so I have him in there next with his healing factor 2. Again, going into that whole mindset of tons of healing. So like I have that durability in my team. Is what I was thinking. Again, mostly physical attacks here. So they're, I think the majority of the guys that I have are physical for the most part, with a little bit of energy and mystical with Cable, but I think for the most part it's physical attacks. But yeah, he does his healing, some extra rerolls already. So he has a reroll in his, due to his I Know Karate superpower. He gets to reroll 1 attack and defense die in his attack and defense rolls. So then you couple that with leadership ability from Cable, and it's now you're rolling 2 attack dice, which is great, which will help feed into his bang bang. Well, it's bang bang, then bang bang bang. Status or rolls on his 1 attack there. So yeah, so I have him in there as well, Deadpool. And he should be super fun. Plus, there's a bunch of cards here that will also help him when we start talking about tactics cards. We have Wolverine next. Again, another X-Force alumni. And again, his healing factor is huge. He can do a ton of damage with his pierce and bleed and everything else. Plus the best at what I do, where he can get the free movement. It's almost like a charge action. Similar to a charge action basically is, but then you have to do the adamantium slash, but each wild will then count as 2 successes. So with that reroll from from Cable, hopefully you can fish for an extra wild for him. Not always going to be the case, but it will give him an extra reroll. So hopefully these guys do hit hard. Yeah, so that's that. And then the Berserker Barrage and everything too is just really good. So yeah, some short throwing in there as well. Domino, obviously. Again, this is a very thematic focused list. There's not too much things that I have pulled from other affiliations that that could go with X-Force. Things like a Thanos might be interesting, or a Baron Zemo with added rerolls might be interesting as well. You know, and Thanos just purely for the amount of attack dice that he can throw in there, and then to allow you to re-roll if you need them and such. Or I was even thinking Medusa to re-roll and fish, because then she'd have 2 re-rolls and fish for like her Braids Bash with the wild on there, so she can get her flurry attack off more, or increase the chances of her getting her flurry attack off. So this is a very thematic list that I've thrown together, because if you haven't been watching the channel over the last bit, I generally do mostly thematic teams, or teams in my head that would have worked together, been together. So going into the next one, we do have Domino. She does have a couple of energy attacks in there, and then her basic builder is her automatic pistols, physical, and she has some survivability just with like the probability manipulation, which when after this character rolls attacks, defense, or dodge dice before the resolve critical step, may spend any amount of power to use a superpower. For each one power spent, you choose one of your failures and treat it as a critical. So then you get to roll a die. It's sort of like a reality gem, but built into her. So it's just insanely good. And then when this character is attacking or defending, enemy characters cannot roll additional dice for their crits. So it's just like the possibility of her being super survivable due to extra crits, or not allowing their opponents to roll the extra crits in their attack or defense rolls, is just massive. When this character is attacking or defending. So yeah, enemy characters can't roll them. So it's just, it's really good, and gives some survivability. Yes, no healing factor like the rest of them, but still I think going to be a survivable character when she hits the board. And all of this, because I haven't played recently, is just thought processes. It's my opinion. It's not actually tested and tried. It's just my thoughts. So feel free to chime in with your thoughts and everything else down below. Sabretooth is up next. He's another one on the X-Force roster. I actually think he will get a ton of use out of Cable's leadership ability, Wetworks, because of his Untamed Force. So after the attack, after an attack against this character resolve, may use a superpower. If the attacker is within range 2, this character may make a claw slash attack targeting the attacker. And then you look at aggressive too, which gets him that extra short movement towards the person that caused damage to him. Via an attack. I think he'll just get a ton of use out of Cable's leadership ability, which is really, really nice. And it might be an interesting target to put a Chimichanga on if he can eventually somehow pick it up and take it from Deadpool, if that's something that you are then interested in. Because then if you have Deadpool, Wolverine, and Sabretooth, it's 3 guys that could be healing 2 damage at the end of their activations, which is massive in my opinion. But yeah, so he'll get a ton of use out of that. Plus, you know, searching for your wilds for your bleed and pierce as well as even Savage Predator as well. So, and then you get all those rerolls from there. So I just think he's going to be a ton of use. Plus, the point for this guy here as well is that long movement. It allows me to get him to where I need to be pretty quickly. With that said, there are other means for me to move some people around with cat and mouse and such, what I'm thinking at least, but that long movement I think will definitely be a benefit. So that's the X-Force portion of my roster, I then am going into something that would still fit with X-Force, and that's more like X-Men and mutants. So Storm, because I think Cable would bring a lot to an X-Men team, and being able to be bounced around a little bit is just really good when you use Storm's leadership ability, plus being able to sit back and gain cover as he's shooting other people. Just amazing. So I think he will bring a lot to an X-Men team with Storm as the leader. Potentially even Cyclops, but who really uses Cyclops' leadership ability, right? So it's usually Storm's, and that's what my main play is I will use Storm's leadership ability with when I have Cable on the team. So I brought her just as an extra bonus affiliation if I need it there. She does have a throw and such, so I may, if I need to throw a 3-pointer in there, I may throw her into the X-Force, but in all honesty, I would probably throw somebody like Beast. I absolutely have loved Beast every time I've used him. Just very durable with his rerolls and his defense, and now giving him a reroll and attack on X-Force. I think he's really good. Plus a throw in there with baser instincts, and can generate a ton of power to be able to do that with his disconcerting yet provocative. So I've been a big fan of Beast, and I think I will probably end up, if I need to throw in a 3-pointer because the points don't add up to where I can play with these guys, he's going to be going in there. Cyclops, just purely on the fact if I want to go X-Men and have the points to do Cable with the X-Men and such, or maybe Cable and Domino with the X-Men because they're both on the roster as well, if I can remember correctly. I have Cyclops to go in there as well. Also, if I end up bringing him in X-Force, in an X-Force list, I do get that push, so a little bit of board control, but also I get the field leader, so I get that advance, the short advance with Cyclops as well. So it can help with some movement and such. So that is an option. Like I may at some point consider bringing him over like a Wolverine maybe. I'm not sure, because there is a ton of healing guys here. Maybe at some point I might try Cyclops in an X-Force list just for some fun. And then my 2 threat characters, these guys are sort of ad hoc. It makes sense for Bob, Agent of Hydra, to come into the roster, tagging along with Deadpool. I just want to try him, so I threw him out in that list. I don't think he's needed, and if I was to take anybody away from this roster, I think Bob's going to be the first one. I don't know who I'd add in yet if I want to make it a little bit more competitive, but something that I'm going to play with over the next while is mutants, because I absolutely love the X-Men. And so I'm going to work on this list and focus on it and practice with it quite a bit and see where I can start making tweaks later. So this is like my first thought process before I start building on this list and trying to improve it. And you'll see I'm not even done completely throwing this list together, in the fact that when we get to the tactics cards momentarily. So Bob, Agent of Hydra, is in there for a 2-threat, and then last 2-threat character is Toad. And I brought Toad purely for the objective game, being able to grab objectives from further away and being able to have that slippery rule to fall back when needed. Or take objectives off of more the guys that are in the forefight or foreground of the battle, in the front lines. He can pull an asset or a civilian off of them, and then sort of move to a safe distance to maybe even get some extra movement out of there. And so he could be. That's basically what I brought him in here. So like I could run, say, I don't know, somebody up the board to get an objective, and then, you know, maybe they get an attack or something like that, and when I activate Toad can then just move up and hopefully jump back and with the objective after using his Finders Keepers superpower. So, but he's in there purely for an objective game and stealing asset tokens and such as needed. So Crisis events that I have, going over the secures, these are the 3 that I am sitting on right now. I got Infinity Formula goes missing purely for the power generation for my guys. And I do have an idea for a roster at 17, which is basically going to be dropping, I'm thinking Sabretooth out of those guys, and putting in either Toad or Bob at first. I think Bob just for fun, but I think Toad eventually. And he's like really the one that, out of everybody, he doesn't fit the most for this roster because he's not an X-Force member and he's not an X-Men member, but he has eventually joined like the I think it was School of Jean Grey and whatnot, and I think he has studied in like Xavier's school back before. But either way, I could be wrong. Could be like, I could just be blowing smoke out my ass at this point, but I'm pretty sure in my foggy memory that he has been involved with the X-Men. Not on a team, but in the school sense. So he just doesn't fit the X-Force theme per se, because I don't think he's ever been in the X-Force from what I can recall. So yeah, Infinity Formula goes missing. That's for the extra power. I have Demons Downtown, so it's an E-style deployment or setup, and that would benefit Cable with his Spender attack, and as well, I know everybody will be getting the Incinerate special condition, which lowers their defense, but with the amount of healing that I can do here, I think that I can actually benefit from that, and it would hopefully hinder my opponent a little bit more. At least that's the thought process that I have, and why I took Demons for the Incinerate special condition. And then I wanted to really try this one out. It's new, so why not? So it is Sword establishes base on the moon's blue area, so it's using map C, and basically you just spend a power to take control of a console, and then if no other opponent is contesting it, you just automatically have it, and then if there are, you roll a die, and on a crit, wild, or hit, you then are controlling the console. And then what happens if you are controlling more consoles during the power phase than your opponent, then you get to push an enemy character short. So could just set up some nice little combos and such. That is what I'm looking at there. So for extractions, what I went with, again, some more power generation, but also because it causes damage, I went with Struggles for the Cube Continues, because I have the healing factor, at least in my head. This is where I went with this one, so I can sort of help compensate for the damage that I'll be suffering for having the cubes or picking up cubes. With my healing factors and with Cable's healing ability, but yet I'll still be gaining power with the cubes as well. So that's why I went with the Struggle for the Cubes Continue. I went with Alien Ship Crashes in Downtown purely for the fact that it kind of reminds me of sort of like an extraction, sort of like the team's going in to extract an enemy or to take out an enemy, you know. So in my thought process, that's why I went with this one. Plus they can sort of focus on those characters. That's the only reason why I went with that. There's no specific reason. Plus, it's a nice 20 threat list, so it sort of allows me to build some stuff around there. And then I went with hammers, so placing 4 celestial hammers, and then you get the extra die for attacking. So I think that will feed into Cable's leadership ability. So the Wet Works leadership ability really well with the rerolls, because the more dice you can roll, the more chances you have at success at hitting and such. So that's where we're at with the crisis events. So let's look at these tactics cards now. Tactics cards, the ones that I'm starting with, or thinking of starting with at least, are as follows. Cat and Mouse. So basically with this, I can get up to the center of the board with Cable and still be able to shoot. Because what it does is, after all the characters are deployed, an X-Force character may play this card. Place this character within 2 of its current positions. So basically, this character cannot make more than 1 move action during its next activation. So Cable can basically get up to the center of the board with this, with 1 move action, and then still be able to shoot. For the hammers, he can still, when you're placed within 2, so if he's placed right at the edge of range 3, then placed within range 2, he's then would be within range 1 of one of the hammers in the D-style deployment, so then he's shooting with 6 dice right off of the bat at range 5. That is absolutely massive. I went with Chimichangas for Deadpool because, well, Deadpool being able to gain additional power at the end of his activation, as well as remove 1 damage or 1 special token, is just super bonkers. And then if he ever drops it, or say Toad steals it or something like that, all of a sudden they're now healing damage as well as gaining additional power. And like, if you have Deadpool, it just makes sense to do this turn 1 and just go to town with it, because you're going to get that power back anyways at the end of round 1. So like, why wouldn't you? So Chimichangas for Deadpool will go good with some extra healing. Again, the healing is what my train of thought was. I have Yoink for Deadpool, and again, because it's supposed to be mostly an X-Force based, I thought Yoink would be good, because then he can start using like Wolverine's special abilities, as well as Cable's being able to move, or Domino's grenade toss and such. So that's why I went with Yoink. On top of that, say Wolverine ends up picking up the Chimichanga, you want Deadpool to have it back, you can just use that card as well. Not that it's necessarily going to happen, but you know, the art says it all right there. Let me see. Up next I have, this is also good for 3 of the characters on there, Wolverine, Sabretooth, and Deadpool, because they all have healing factors, so exceptional healing, so it keeps me on the board that much longer by spending 3 power and then reducing the amount of damage suffered to 1. After that, I have Medpack Field Dressing because of extra healing, as well as keeping my guys on the board. And then I'm going into my last 2 tactics cards that I'm currently with, and I think I haven't looked at the updated ban restricted list, but I'm pretty sure I'm still within. So First Class, if I ever end up playing X-Men, it allows me to interact with the first objective without spending power, so it helps conserve that power, which is really good. And then Bitter Rivals is just such a good card that you target one of your opponents, and then everybody else within range 3 of them, all their allies, suffer -1 or roll 1 less die for their attack and defense rolls. So it's just such a good card to have, and I think when you pair that with leadership rerolls and everything else with the X-Force, I think it's just going to be super good. Now, with that said, I'm not quite done yet, because these are the other cards I'm looking at taking. So Pretty Sneaky Sis, it's an X-Force exclusive card, but it's basically every X-Force character can spend 2 power and then to play this card, and then when they do, the enemy characters have to be within range 2 of the character to target them with an attack. So it's just super good. So I'm thinking about adding that in there. I'm not sure yet where I want it to be. No matter the cost, just due to the fact that anybody that has a healing factor, if you're using a spender, you can take the damage to do it, so you're not using your power, and then at the end of the round, healing. So like, if Deadpool on his front side is full and he uses, what is it called? The Denium Poke, it's 3 power, so you can suffer 3 damage and then use that without spending power. And if you have the Chimichanga, you're going to heal 3 damage because he has healing factor 2 already at the end of your activation. So like, you're set. So if you have 3 power already, use this, then do this, you know, twice in an activation if possible. But like, it's that's why that's there. Really good with Wolverine when I played it with him, and allows him to benefit from it. I have Dirty Work, which is basically target 1 person, so it's sort of like their hit. And then, so an X-Force character spends 3 power. You target 1 character. If they're dazed or KO'd that round, each other X-Force character on your team gains 2 power. So it's just, again, with building that power up for your team. That's why I have that in there. And then Warpath just for that extra movement. So that's where we're at with those guys. Warpath is basically like an aggressive from that Sabretooth has, so you can double aggressive move or short move with Warpath with him, or if you need Deadpool or Wolverine to get in there as well into range, it just helps you there. So those are cards that I'm looking at fitting into this list, and I think the first thing to go would probably be Medpack, just because I'm liking everything else that's in there. Maybe if I end up not wanting to play X-Men as much, maybe like these guys as well. But yeah, I think with the amount of healing and stuff that I have amongst the characters and everything, Medpack is maybe one of the first ones that goes. I'm not sure yet. But that's it. That's my roster that I'm looking at building for X-Men, or have built, I should say, and playing sometime soon, hopefully. Our lockdown order has been extended for another 2 weeks, so until like June 2nd or something like that. So it won't be anytime soon unless I start teaching my son how to play, or doing the Ultron Ultimate Encounter is something else that I'm thinking about doing, the solo version, trying that out. But I won't be getting any games in anytime soon, so I'll be doing hopefully more coverage of things along this line, discussing about like teams that I can throw together and everything else. But yeah, that's that. So if you haven't yet, make sure you check out Torchlight Games and Hobbies, the link in the description of the video down below, and give them your support. Also, while you're down there, check out my Patreon link, because again, all the support helps me do what I'm doing here at the channel and keep us going. But without further ado, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ignite your hobby.